a lot of people, we've driven hundreds of people around the streets of Alpharetta, and this is the first time they've seen connected vehicles on the street. We've been trying to deploy as an industry connected vehicles for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's the first time people have seen it on the street. So we've got to do a better job of outreach of the solutions. And what's important is what it does, not how it works.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Pulse Podcast from Wavetronics, coming to you from the ITS World Congress. We have a very special guest today. We are joined by a true innovator in the world of intelligent transportation, Bryan Mulligan, president of Applied Information based in Georgia. Bryan and his team are at the forefront of using connected vehicle technology, smart traffic systems, and data-driven solutions to make our roads safer, smarter, and more efficient. Does that all sound correct, Bryan?
Yeah, thanks, Rod. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you. Last time I interviewed you, it was hot, it was in the sun, it was out in front of your great building. This is a little better setting.
Yeah,
I
a
think.
little bit better. It's kind of interesting. I've been in this transportation business here in the United States for 30 years. You can tell from my accent that I'm from Cape Town in South Africa originally. But nonetheless, for 30 years have been watching this industry change, and yet still not fundamentally solving the problem that it was created to solve. So,
And what is that problem?
twofold.
Twofold.
First of all, safety. Safety, we could have a whole discussion just about that, because we all say in this industry, oh, safety is our number one priority. But it absolutely isn't. It's our number 3 priority.
Interesting. Thought-provoking.
Yeah, our number 1 priority is convenience. I could illustrate with a little example. So pedestrian fatalities are a huge problem on the roads of the United States. And we know from the data that if you hit a pedestrian at 20 miles an hour, there's a 90% probability the pedestrian will survive. You hit a pedestrian at 40 miles an hour, there's a 90% probability that the pedestrian will die. So it's a comparatively simple thing to do to kill fewer pedestrians, is lower the speed limits in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody goes bananas.
Yeah.
We can't do that. I mean, what about my commute? What about this? What about this? And so that's where we need to be a little bit cleverer. Safety is important. It is the number 1 priority, because nobody wants our loved ones to die. But we know as humans that crashes and fatalities happen to other people.
Yeah.
We actually don't really make it personal. And that's where we as an industry have got to actually just do a better job of communicating. And that's where we'll talk about the Glance community and why we're spending more and more of our resources on community issues, education and outreach, because whereas the technical guys in traffic aren't getting it done.
So you're saying that that's the 3rd priority.
Well, yes, that's correct. And
But not for applied information.
Not for applied information. For us as an industry, in other words, I'm looking at this, as I've been in this industry so long, looking down at what problem are we trying to solve and why is that important? So the work we did with you, for example, absolutely fantastic technology called intelligent left turn, where we use your radios to solve what the USD DOT would call left turn assist, intelligent left turn, crossing the traffic, huge number of fatalities. And what we do with your radar and your technology is measure the location of every vehicle that's approaching a dangerous spot. And with connected vehicles and travel safely and cellular V2X network, as well as flashing beacons and things like that, we can tell the traveling public that it's unsafe to cross. It's a great piece of technology. Nobody buys it.
And why?
There's no fashion, there's no culture, there's no history. And this is an industry that by and large does the same thing. Now if you walk around this trade show, now it does it with artificial intelligence. well, that's a really good thing because
Yeah.
it's going to do whatever it's going to do. But bringing fundamental change to our industry is just much harder than it looks. And that's where we are doing our bit with creating this community, which I'll talk about a little bit, called the Glance Community, as well as focusing on actually solving the problem of saving lives and improving traffic, driving commerce. We're a private sector guy. I'm unapologetic. America's the best place to build a business. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
And so we're driving commerce and we're helping the environment. There's an environmental aspect which goes in and out of favor depending on the politics, but nonetheless that's a fundamental problem. So those are the 4 things that our vision is created: save lives, improve traffic, drive commerce, and help the environment. And each one needs a real focus on changing our world, our environment. When I say our environment, our business environment, of how we go to market and how we demonstrate value in intelligent transportation system. Hugely capable. But as the mayor of Alpharetta, when he stood up on Sunday and when we had our technical tour, he said, "I'm from the government and we aren't known for innovation." He said, "That's why we support the work that we're doing up in Alpharetta, a very progressive city in North Atlanta, to be able to show people, a lot of people, we've driven hundreds of people around the streets of Alpharetta, and this is the first time they've seen connected vehicles on the street. We've been trying to deploy as an industry connected vehicles for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's the first time people have seen it on the street. So we've got to do a better job of outreach of the solutions. And what's important is what it does, not how it works."
You mentioned looking down at problems. Explain a little bit more about that.
We're an industry of widgets. And you guys make great traffic sensors. That's the thing. So how do we solve the problem of fatalities using a great traffic sensor? And the answer is there's just a big gap between a great traffic sensor and reducing the fatalities. Now, if you're measured by your business of being able to count cars and do classifications and all the things that Wavetronics do so very well, that's a great success. If you count us as an industry by ability to reduce fatalities on the road, we're an abysmal failure because the fatalities are not going down. But nonetheless, the people who tend to buy intelligent transportation in the government, because they understand counting cars, and good for you, that's why you sell car counting things, and you do planning and all of these kinds of things. But this is looking down at the details of a problem, not at looking what I call glance looking up, is how do we deal with some of these really important problems of congestion's getting worse, fatalities are not coming down, and so forth. And I think there's some low-hanging fruit which we as an industry should be going after, but it's very hard, as illustrated with my example with, well, let's just reduce the speed limits.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an example. So it's, yourselves and others, video detection systems, can tell when there are a lot of pedestrians on the road. Now, one of the things, we've got a very well-proven technology of slowing vehicles down outside schools. When it's done on a schedule traditionally, and we've got 20,000 of these. We've got 44% of the schools in Texas, covered in slowing the vehicles down to make it safer for the children. So why don't we use that technology to change the speed limit in the city streets when there are pedestrians around?
Why don't we? Adaptive speed limits.
Adaptive speed limits
makes sense.
And the reason being, and we, and then we can do enforcement. Oh yeah, automatic enforcement. No, let's not do that. That's a politically sensitive, because safety is our number 3 priority.
Yeah.
And so I'm not very popular in certain circles, as you can imagine, but that's okay, because you have to be a little bit provocative in order to make people feel a little bit uncomfortable. And that is why we do very well with cities. You're trying to deliver values. I'll mangle the quote, but there's a quote about the government closest to the people works best.
Mm-hmm.
And the cities with the mayors and whatnot who got to deal with city traffic issues, they can be quite progressive, and that's obviously been good for. If you indulge me, I'll give one more example.
Okay. Yeah.
Traffic engineers. This is generalization, but sweeping statement. They hate buses. When you say, I want to do transit signal priority, you're going to mess up the traffic, and it's a disaster, and let's not do that. Emergency vehicle preemption, what a business that is. You get all this pushback historically from traffic engineers. But I advocate for transit for this simple thing. The transit we see today is not the transit of the future. Autonomous buses are coming, autonomous vehicles are coming. I drove people backwards and forwards to our offices without touching the steering wheel in the autonomous vehicles that you can buy today. And so what the business of transit signal priority is, let's make the buses work better. And everyone say, but it's got to be conditional. No, it doesn't. I'm pushing a point here.
Yeah.
Let's have empty buses drive through and get a green light every time they travel. Because, yes, some guy at the red light will say, there's an empty bus driving past and it always gets green. Maybe tomorrow I'll take the bus. So what you have to do is, that's where the outreach and the advocacy comes from, is you make the buses have a shorter time to drive on a commute than cars. What will happen is you'll drive ridership to multi-passenger vehicles.
Yeah.
If you drive ridership to multi-passenger vehicles, there are fewer cars. Everybody wins.
Less congestion.
Safer.
Fewer accidents.
Less environmental,
Yeah.
lower cost. Everybody wins if we could have a policy change to advocate for multi-passenger vehicles. But it's very unpopular, especially here in the South. And, I'm yelling into the void.
Yeah. So with the unpopularity, the frustrations, agencies, organizations not looking up, as you say, at problems, how do you keep motivated to keep doing what you're doing?
We have some huge successes. I'm going to give you an emotional one. We've just made our first documentary, a movie, full-length documentary. We're seeking distribution for it. It's going through that process. It was selected and displayed play at the Rhode Island International Film Festival. It's called The Next Right Thing. And what The Next Right Thing is the story about 4 people that we happened to come across in the course of providing life-saving preemption technology. We're a technology company, whatever. And this was a young woman who had an opioid addiction problem. She'd overdosed a number of times, and this is the story about an overdose that she had when a young firefighter, actually in Marietta, Georgia, saved her life. She's turned her life around, and in conjunction with another 2 people, Missy and Michael Owen, who run a recovery center for opioid addiction. And we don't know, we went and looked up the route of the firefighter who went and injected her with Narcan and saved her life, and we turned the lights green for him. We played our tiny little role in saving that person's life. Her name's Lexi Brown, and she's a proud advocate for opioid recovery, so she's known to us and she's part of our community. And interestingly enough, we advocated for having a panel session with her and the other characters, not to advocate for ourselves, but the business of connected vehicles, turning the lights green for paramedics, saved her life. And this community needed to hear from her. But the powers that be said, no, we don't think that's of interest.
Wow.
So because they focused on how it works,
yes,
not on what it does. And so those are how do I keep motivated? That's how I keep motivated. Because not only Lexi's living a wonderful life now, she just had a little baby, so there's 2 people's lives that were saved.
It kind of makes me think of Hollywood and how directors create movies for other directors to impress their peers, and they don't think about the general public, the people who go to watch that movie.
You got it.
And I think that sometimes happens in transportation. We don't think about the people who have to drive and walk and ride bikes on those roads, right?
I'm going to give you another example. Because you can tell that I'm passionate about this whole business.
And it's amazing that your company, a technology company in transportation, is producing a full-length documentary. I mean, that's really cool.
It is, but there's no option.
Yeah.
And there's no option but to communicate. Well, it's actually what you said, because I don't need to communicate how these people in this trade show want to hear it. I need to communicate how the public want to. Every time there's an incident, whatever tragedy might have occurred, the mayor of a city will be on the television. On his one side is the fire chief. On his other side is the police chief. Where's the traffic engineer? The guy who runs the traffic department. No, he's in the back room somewhere.
Yeah.
So you end up with these really weird situations. One of the things we do is obviously we do preemption priority. And so we've got 5 divisions, and one of our divisions now is fire and EMS. Getting people getting paramedics. 80% of the fire calls are for medical emergencies, not fires. And the heart attack, stroke, accident, and opioid victims are very time dependent. Makes a huge difference whether you get there in 4 minutes or 5 minutes or 6 minutes. And so the gold standard for response is 4 minutes.
Wow.
Right. So you've got to be able to get, in your city, you've got to get a paramedic to a guy in 4 minutes. Now, fortunately, with connected vehicles, we know when the truck starts rolling out of the firehouse, and we know when the paramedic opens the door. So we've got very accurate data of how long it actually takes. So there's no nonsense. There are thousands and thousands of these trips. And we produced a heat map, because we're starting a GIS department to be able to visualize this, not for these traffic engineers, but for the mayor. Because he needs to know, where are his underserved areas? Where should he put in a new firehouse? And what we should do is that we can actually make response times much shorter just by doing more aggressive connected vehicle technology. We can, in fact, the City of Roswell is public information, traded off whether we're going to build a $12 million firehouse or to spend $1 million on connected vehicle technology. And they chose to do the $1 million on connected vehicle technology. It wasn't from on top, it wasn't from the USDOT. They don't know anything about what kind of radio it is. They just knew it would deliver the outcome at a fraction of the cost. And fortunately, they picked us, and now we got a nice order to do another city. And we're in 1,650 cities.
Wow.
So that story is repeated over and over, that there's value in what we do, and we lose track of it because we're worried about which radio it is, or what the bits and bytes are, or a protocol, or just imagine if, or what about security, and all of those things are important, but they're not as important as what it does, and it can make a fundamental difference to people's lives. And so, to finish the story about GIS, we produce a heat map of the city, and right through the city, as an example, there's a red line through the middle where the response times are terrible. They're all over 6 minutes. People are dying. What is that? That's the interstate. And it was just only last week. I'm visualizing the data to myself for the first time. And I think I know one or two things, but clearly not. I was talking about, you said, yeah, that's the interstate. It's a well-known problem in fire circles that you can't get emergency responders to the interstate in time. A couple of reasons for that. First one, when you have a crash on the interstate,
It's gridlock.
it's gridlock. But the first problem is 911, what's the emergency? I've just witnessed a big crash. Oh, where are you? No idea. How do you tell where you are on the interstate? There's no cross streets. So that's a problem that technology can solve.
Yes.
The ramp meters, why don't we modify the timing so we turn them all red to prevent people going onto the freeway when there's crash and the thing's gridlocked? No, we just let more people go on.
Yeah.
Why don't we control the lights? Why don't we try and get people off? Why don't we use connected vehicles to tell people that there's a crash on the freeway, they need to go to the shoulder so the fire truck can get through? So we can identify with data the problem, and then we can use all these technologies we have to provide the solution. So that's what I mean by doing the application first. Focused on the application, focused on the problem. What's the problem? Why is it important? And how do we solve it? And then all this other stuff comes into play. We'll come and buy your sensors and do whatever we do when we need that technology. But there's very little of this top-down, of this bottom-up looking process of trying to solve these big societal problems. And that exists in each one of our school safety. I could tell you stories like that, and so forth.
So with your approach and when you dream in Bryan Mulligan's perfect world,
yes,
what does transportation look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Maybe not in our lifetimes. What do you hope it becomes?
Safe and efficient.
And those are words you hear everywhere, but how is that going to happen?
Okay. What we're going to do is there are a couple of fundamental changes that are going to have to occur. The first of all is traffic engineers believe in certainty and longevity of their decisions. In technology, unfortunately, neither of those are true. So what you have is we've spent 20 years trying to deploy connected vehicles based on picking a radio and making people live with that for 20 years. We know from the cell phone business that's simply not true.
Yeah.
It goes from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G, and they're writing the 6G and 7G standards. So you have to transition our industry to outcomes-based contracting. That's a fundamental thing, and there's a great example about how the federal government actually did that, which I'll tell you in a minute. But outcomes-based contract means that the cities and counties and states and the federal government can contract for outcomes, not be the arbiter of what's a good or bad decision, technology. And so, for example, there's some places where video is appropriate, there's some places where radio is appropriate, there's some places where it's a combination. Let us in the private sector team up with the right people to deliver the outcome that the city needs and wants. And that's, I like to say that we try and sell $100 bills for $10. It's remarkably difficult.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that our value proposition is never in doubt. But the number of times, yes, Brian, but the problem with that is whatever it is, and there's always a reason. But we're making great progress. We've got 55,000 devices in 1,650 cities, all connected, all talking to Waze and the House Alert and delivery, travel safely, the app, and so forth. And so we're making great progress. I'm just in a hurry. It's actually we part of the fact that I'm getting older is we're very motivated to do the maximum good for the maximum people in the minimum time. And in fact, one of the people just came up with an equation. It was called max.good, in computer terms, max.good times max.people divided by min.time equals glance. And that's this glance community.
So if we look back, young Bryan in Cape Town, did you say?
Yeah, Cape Town, South Africa.
Did you envision this being your life?
No. And the reason being, I'm a civil engineer. What I really know about is concrete. But when I was a young engineer, I figured out quite quickly that applying technology was the first PCs, the first microprocessors and things like that. Obviously aging myself here. And I did security systems. I made American sports scoring technology, baseball scoreboards. I made them score cricket.
Nice.
That's how I moved to America all those years ago, 30 years ago, is that we were bought out by an American company that made the scoreboards, and we could make it score British sports. And they had a traffic division, and that's how I ended up in traffic, because if we focused on the applications, and then I'm a serial entrepreneur and built a number of companies over my time, and this one's by far the best. It's focused on the applying of technology, and that's why the company's called Applied Information. Information is data in context made useful. It has to be made useful. Having a bunch of data about speed, volume, and occupancy on a freeway, you have to put that in context and make it useful, and that's what we try. That's what I'm very motivated to do.
AI, that's a great name for a company these days, right?
Sometimes you're good, sometimes you're lucky. I was completely lucky. Artificial intelligence wasn't invented when I came up with AI.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so now we're AI squared, so we climb on the bandwagon like everybody else and use artificial intelligence.
Well, it's like they say in golf, it's better to be lucky than good sometimes,
That's
right?
exactly it. Sometimes you're good, sometimes you're lucky, and we've had a fair share of both.
Yeah, I'll let you take a drink here, and I'll ask you another question. So, obviously you said the United States is a great place to have a business and make money. And you don't start a business, hopefully, without the goal of making money because you've got to pay people and you've got to live, right? But that doesn't seem like that's your priority.
And I don't know why it is. It's just the way I'm built. I'm very fortunate that Applied Information has been very successful, and we're entirely self-capitalized. So this whole private equity zoo, which is sweeping through our industry, I'd just say no. And after the 27th time, still no. I'm not selling Applied Information. My strategy is comparatively simple. It's called immortality and denial.
As easy as that, huh?
Yeah, I'm just going to do this forever.
Yeah.
And so that's my attitude. And yes, I like the nice things in life. I like to travel. I love safari. I go into the wild areas of Africa as much as I can, and a couple of times a year. And I travel extensively on vacation, clear my head. But once you've done that, well, what else are you going to do? So there's a limit to how much money, in my view, you need, because I actually don't want my own aeroplane. Whatever, it wouldn't make a substantial difference to my life, but that amount of money makes a substantial difference to other people's lives. So we've started a program called Glance Cares, where we're investing in rural Africa in the training of safari guides.
Wow.
And we've had some great successes. Doing philanthropy in Africa is not easy. It's got its challenges. But nonetheless, we do a thing called the Grand Safari Prize, where we take our distributors on safari to Africa, and in April we're going to take another whole set of distributors and be guided by the people who we've put through guiding schools. So we'll close the circle. The money that we've made through our distributors selling the Glance products and services ends up in Africa. And the great hope for Africa, by the way, is people visiting the wild places. That's really creates jobs in rural Africa. Which solves a number of the social problems in the cities and things like that. And the wild areas support thousands of jobs, supporting people like us visiting and being able to experience the wilds that Africa has to offer. It's an experience like no other.
Yeah, that is fascinating. You never know where a conversation with Bryan Mulligan is going to go, and I didn't think we'd go to safari in Africa. You know?
Yeah.
And helping guides there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And so that's when I say that's where the money goes. And it's not that I say, oh, well, I'm being so magnanimous about this, or I could buy another thing. I've got the car I want, I've got the house I want, I've just built a very nice house. I travel where I want. And now it's come time to give back. America's been hugely good to me.
Yeah.
And I'm very motivated, and our team of 150 people, they're all motivated to do good. And I'm very proud of them for that.
Project we worked with you on, that unprotected left turn, I mean, that's the other side of the documentary that you have, where this woman survived because of your technology. Tell us a little bit about that story and your friend Liam.
That's an emotional story.
Yeah.
Unprotected left turns are just a huge hazard, particularly in the way American roads are built. Suburban roads, you've got a 2-lane road in one direction, 2-lane in the other, and subdivisions all the way up and down the roads. And you can't put a traffic light everywhere. And so what you do is you pull into the gore where you wait to get a space in the opposing traffic. And the speed limit's 55 miles an hour or something like that, and everybody's doing 70.
Yeah.
So you wait for the gap, and if the gap to pull into the subdivision or the strip mall that you're going to pull into, and if the gap works, you pass through, nobody knows. If you make a mistake, everybody dies. It's a high-speed head-on collision. And that, unfortunately, is how a friend of mine lost his life, Liam Hayward. And that motivated me to try and use technology to come up with something that can prove that. You can't save every life, but you can make it better. And that's where we collaborated with you guys to have a radar that picked up the trajectory, the velocity, and the position of every approaching car. And now we can actually use mathematics to tell whether it's unsafe to cross. And we'll give people warnings through flashing lights, connected vehicles, and on their app on their phone, or in Stellantis, or vehicles which have house alert and various other ways of getting the message out. And we can make it safer. The challenge is getting change in local authorities. And we've got some great references, and down at Peachtree Corners, where we've got a site at the Curiosity Labs, they reported that was a hot spot for collisions. That was why we put it there. There's been a substantial reduction in collisions since they deployed the technology. So it actually works. But there's not a culture of buying it at scale. So we sell a couple and here and there, and we're still advocating and pushing for it. But that's what you've got to be. You've got to be adaptable and flexible. I can make a great solution, and if nobody buys it and deploys it, doesn't matter how good the solution was. And so that's where our preemption, our 5 divisions, which I'll run through quickly, which are school safety systems and pedestrian safety systems, RFBs, pedestrian crossings. I mean, we've got great stories at the risk of making the story too long, but nonetheless, we've got Travel Safely, which is a connected vehicle app. So we did a job with the University of Gainesville, the University of Florida at Gainesville, and they had their students download the app and use it a lot, and both while driving as well as pedestrians. And we then plotted a heat map of everywhere the pedestrian got an alert that say, bop, bop, speeding car, and the car got an alert, bop, bop, pedestrian ahead. So we could tell whether those things happened. And it's just an indictment of us as an industry. And the reason being, it's a university town. And all the university students crossed at a place where it was convenient for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the crosswalk was in another place where it was convenient for traffic.
Yeah.
And so it was just viscerally brought it to me that they're visualizing this data and visualizing this, and we need to do more work in presenting papers and things like that. But we've got a big video program, as you know, and this all the business of getting these stories out however we can, because we can use all these technologies to make better decisions and change the world.
Let's talk about the rest of those divisions.
Okay.
So you got school safety, you got preemption.
Yeah, and the fire and EMS, that's the thing where there's a culture in the fire service. So we've got now hiring our own firefighters to talk to the firefighters in their language, not expecting them to understand traffic.
Yeah.
So that's hugely successful for us, life-saving, hundreds of thousands of lives saved. We don't always know who they are, but as in Lexi's case, we got to know her. The third one is remote communications and video. And so the business of fiber optic for last mile communications, digging up the sidewalk to put in fiber optic, that's over.
Yeah.
Wireless cell phone technology now transports video as well as fiber in that application. And it's a substantially lower cost, and you don't need to dig up and maintain stuff in the sidewalk. And so that's where remote communications and video, we estimate that in 5 years' time, 50% of our revenue will be associated with a video component.
Wow.
Because everybody wants to see what's happened, what's going on. The fourth one is connected vehicles. Very difficult business of stops and starts, and huge amount of focus from the federal government. Doing a great job, but struggling to get the OEMs to see the value. And, we'll have to just see how all of the connected vehicle goes. But we do a lot of connected vehicle stuff using the cellular network.
Yeah, I was going to say, is the connection going to be everybody's cell phone? Is that what it'll be?
No, I think it's going to be everybody's everybody.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's everything.
Yeah.
Because there'll be some in the car, some in the phone, some with direct radios, some with 3G, 4G, 5G radios. I like to say that we should go to war for connected vehicles with the radios we have, not the radios we wished we had.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the business of bringing the data back from your devices and sharing that infrastructure with some video and with some other sensors from other folks, and sending the information to the traffic controllers and so forth. Let's share the infrastructure. We know how to do that, and the reason being the internet taught us how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the connected vehicles, which is still a big market and big potential for us. We've got a number of really nice contracts in the go there. And then the fifth division is transit. And that's where the business of transit signal priority comes in. But it needs new technology, new approaches, new understanding. And you have to be able to talk to transit people. It's a similar technology to fire, but they don't talk like firemen. Firemen talk one way. They're a very hierarchical paramilitary organization. Transit are much more people-oriented and things like that. So we split that as a separate division. But I give you some examples where new technology and new approach can solve long-standing problems. And one of them is, how do you make bus stops safe? One of the ways you make bus stops safe is called near-side stops. So that is where the bus stop is before the traffic intersection, right? So bus pulls in before the traffic intersection, everybody gets off, and then they can cross the street where the pedestrian crossings. The big problem with near-side stops is two things. When there's cars stopped at the traffic light, the bus can't get to the bus stop. When the bus is stopped at the bus stop, you can't turn the light green for it because it's stopped. So all the traffic engineers says, what we need to do is transition transit to far side stops. Because what we can do then is we can turn the light green for the traffic, get the traffic through, get the bus through, it stops on the far side, everybody wins, except for one small fatal flaw, is you're dropping everybody off at the mid-block.
Yeah.
So when they cross the road, they're jaywalking.
Yeah.
And they all get hit by the cars turning right. So yes, it's more convenient for a traffic engineer, but it kills all the passengers. Not all of them, but you make my point.
Not all of them, hopefully.
Okay, yeah. But making my point, it's a more dangerous thing to do. So we come along and say, oh, well, let's apply our connected vehicle technology, and we come up with a set of algorithms so that when we detect that there's traffic ahead of the bus, and it can't get to the bus stop, we turn the light green, flush the traffic out, get the bus into the bus stop, let the traffic light go, and then based on it, using some AI and stuff, that we know how long it is before the bus on average leaves that bus stop, and we start turning the light green 20 seconds before the bus is ready to leave, and programmatically, the bus is ready to leave the bus stop. Oh, the light just happened to be green, but we made it that way. So that's advancements in transit technology, and why we made our own division under a VP of Transit, Bob Reeby, who's now we've been it's been very successful for us.
You've got a little bit going on, Bryan.
We do. So we've got 5 active divisions, and I've got 14 in the waiting.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I went. But
that's where that immortality comes in.
Yeah. And so for example, let's take security. What are we doing about the security of the traffic infrastructure? That's a difficult problem. We haven't really thought about that, and so forth. Lighting. We can make things much safer for pedestrians if we properly light the crosswalks when there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, and we call that pedestrian activated lighting. Intelligent left turn, which we've got for you. We've got lots of ideas still in the pipeline, but we're busy executing very nicely on our 5 main divisions.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's an incredible company for a serial entrepreneur, and this your biggest, best company. What does leadership look like for you? What's your philosophy in being a leader?
Great point. And my overriding principle is to make space. Talented people don't need to be told what to do. You just got to make space in front of them. Let them make their own decisions. Let them make errors.
I mean, that's so huge. Let them make mistakes.
Let them make mistakes.
Yeah.
And all I do, people say I should write a business book, and I'd say, well, I'm not going to do that because nobody would buy it.
I might, get you to sign it, right?
There are a couple of principles. Visibility and accountability. Every aspect of running our business has got a dashboard. How many customer complaints there were, how many RMAs there were, how many, what's the prospects, what's the pipeline, what's this and that. Everything's got a dashboard that's open to everybody. No secrets. So we have a company meeting where everybody attends once a week for an hour. It's called forecasting. And what we do is we praise in private and we punish in public.
That's a great philosophy. I don't want to work for you, Bryan.
So what it is that everybody's got a section with their metrics that they called on to defend about people who need them to perform.
Yeah.
Not me. It's all just me watching.
So it's not individually punishing. It's divisions.
No, they punish themselves because if they can't do what they say they're going to do, somebody will ask them, when can you get that problem resolved? And the software guy will say, it'll be solved by next week. Okay, and somebody writes it down.
Instant collaboration.
And somebody next week comes around pretty quick.
Yeah.
And they say, when are you going to have that problem solved? Next week. No, that's what you said last week. The pressure to perform comes from everybody's peers. It doesn't come from me.
The peers and the transparency of it all.
Yeah, the transparency, visibility and accountability, and everybody's held to the same standard. And so there's no place to hide.
Yeah. So if you're called into the boss's office, it's probably going to be a good thing. You're going to be praised, right?
I'm not sure. Praise is self-evident.
Yeah.
Because I tell everybody that that I judge, I've been running technology companies for a long time. A key problem with technology companies is loose ends, where you're letting a customer down because something didn't work quite right, especially when you're going very quickly. So I judge our whole company's performance on one simple metric, which is how often does my phone ring? Everybody knows my number.
Yeah.
Every customer and distributor and person, 150 people, they can all phone me, and they never do. And that's because of the people having ownership. Because they know that if they phone me, I'm going to say, I've got no idea.
Yeah.
I'll ask somebody to look at it. But if they call somebody who's accountable, everybody knows who's accountable for what. They call them, because then they can get the problem actually resolved without involving me.
Aside from immortality, what keeps you motivated?
We're making progress. We're in 1,650 cities. None of them cancel. None of them swap us out. They all buy more. They've all bought into this idea that Glance, as a smart city supervisory system, can actually be a platform that they can build a more effective city or county operation on. And I'm going to give you an example. This is kind of a funny story. We were doing a connected vehicle demonstration, a little precinct, where we stood up for TechStart Innovation Summit. And we were driving people backwards and forwards through connected vehicle technology, giving them alerts, alarms, preemption, priority, fire trucks, all the different applications to do with priority. And we've got Glance, which is the central software, and we had some screens. And obviously there was perceived as an unimportant job to do. So I was given the job of explaining what was going on the screens and operating the computer interface. Which I was doing, and I'm obviously very, very proud of our technology and so forth. And this guy comes up to me and he says, and I don't know anybody, he says, so what is this Glance business? What does it do? And I launch into it and I start explaining what it does. And this guy elbows me out the way and says, no, he says, let me explain. He said, we're a Glance city. And I'm going to tell you how we use Glance. And I sort of yielded to him, and I sat there amazed as one of our customers, who I didn't know, sold our system to another customer that I didn't know. And that's what gave me the idea that Glance was much more than our product. It's a community. It's a community of PTAs. It's a community of opioid recovery centers. It's a community of users who need more effective transportation. It's a community of cyclists, of pedestrians, of all these folks who are depending on us to deliver a more efficient and safer transportation environment. And we don't always do a very good job about it. So that's what keeps me really motivated.
For those looking into getting into this industry, into transportation, and making an impact, what advice would you give them with all these years looking back?
That's a great question, and as always, I have an opinion. I'm often wrong, but I'm never in doubt.
Very good.
So,
got to be confident.
Yeah. So what you've got to do is just seize the future. You're going to work for, the consulting companies are under flux. They're very hard for a consulting company to deliver change because they're trying to sell man-hours and services to a customer who doesn't want to change. Very hard for the consulting community. So I say join a technology company. We're hiring creative writers and social media people and people with the soft skills who don't talk bits and bytes and gobbledygook. They talk human.
Yeah.
And so whatever your bent is, join a technology company and don't ask anybody's permission to change the world. Just focus on your value proposition. And that's why I don't do the private equity thing because, or external funding, because you always got to, you've got a return on investment, you've got a board meeting coming up, and you've got to worry about, your next funding round and all of those things. what that means is all that executive bandwidth that goes into that is not spent on the customer. So our 100% focus is on the customer and solving these very difficult problems without asking anybody's permission. We just go and sell them based on the value that they produce.
Just change the world.
Just change the world.
I love that. And
just do it.
Don't look down at a problem. Look up.
Yeah, in other words, we have to look down to understand the details. We've got to look up to be able to talk to the mayor, because the mayor is going to decide the budget on whether he's going to build that new medium down the thing and plant trees in the middle of the road, which means the paramedics can't cross over the road and makes his response times worse, or whether he's going to understand that saving the lives of his citizens is really important to his re-election.
Yeah. Fascinating conversation, Bryan. Anything else you want to add that we haven't discussed?
No, I think I've worn you out pretty good.
No,
I don't know how long I've been talking for.
It's always great to chat with you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on the Pulse Podcast.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
And thank you for joining us on the Pulse Podcast. We hope to see you next time.